So very warm welcome to intellectual property for makers, which means more like in the sense for entrepreneurs, and how can you exploit most of your business know-how. The thing is like that. We in this session, I like you to give you an overview what you can do, the depths about intellectual property and why it's so important. I promise every one of you leaving here will be a different person. That's a big claim, but let's see. So briefly, let me introduce myself. My name is Roberto Cali. I was 12 years a soldier as well. Then I was it with my whole heart. I love being in the military. But if you're like a top-notch person and you don't get just as leistungsabhängig, which means like performance related. If you're a performer, but it doesn't get performance related salary, it's a bit bitter. And then I said, okay, I had long enough larger organizations. Now I want to try something different. And so I found my partner. And back then we were like, okay, we want to found anything. And we started with this self-employment, which was a quality management consultancy. And we're testing ideas. And back then he was also a patent attorney candidate, and it was the reason how Ricardo got to intellectual property, because he was a candidate. There was an inquiry of his network to provide a specific type of abstract to ease patent monitoring, which is a specific task you don't have to understand too much, but basically this was the start. And then we founded the company. It went very well. Then at the end, we had some hiccups. And then I got an offer from Europe's largest IP service and software provider, which is the company called Questel. And they invited me. And I was like, okay, that's a good offer. And I took it. And now I take only care about what we called A-class clients, which means companies like big corporates and enterprises. So for the German market. From my education, I made several things. I'm literally a kind of a software guy, then process, and then I became a kind of master in intellectual property, also in law, and I was doing several certification and trainings programs, because if you want to work in that field, you need to deeply understand what you're doing. And it was for me very important. But I came always from a kind of a different perspective. I was always a kind of an outsider, foreigner, because I was not a patent attorney candidate, which gives me unique perceptions of the market. And also there were people like, hey, you can't found there a company from scratch. It's not working. And I did. You can't make money with it. You don't get the trust of larger corporates. All my first clients were huge international clients. This is bullshit some people tell you with biases. And today will be more about your business as it will be for IP. IP has an important role, and we'll cover a lot of things, uncommon thoughts, but it is not about making you a patent attorney, and it shouldn't be. It's not your duty. And I will also explain you why. During my time as an entrepreneur, I got inventor in over 90 patents as a software guy, And it's not software patents, hardware. I already have like a LinkedIn followership, which is roughly 3,500 followers. So if you're not connected, please feel free to reach out. Would be a pleasure to have you in my network. I wrote a book, a small one even, but still it is, it's selling naturally without any advertising. It was already copied illegally by a head of IP, and it was cited in a scientific work. So it is really far off from being professional and a good book, but it got all the things that a book need. So sometimes you just have to do. And perhaps if you have to jump off from this call now, one lesson or lecture idea you could take already is sometimes you just have to do. And like Arnold Schwarzenegger liked to say, don't believe the naysayers, because what I did is not possible if you listen to the naysayers. Now, before we start, very important, I don't make you an IP expert, so there's no basics, and also please, everything that I say, review it for yourself carefully, okay? The next thing is, there's no legal advice. Therefore, you have to put everything that I say in context of your own business and thing with a lot of, like the lawyers like it depends, okay? But what I will promise you, and my claim is, I want you to be better, a bit smarter, have at least one tiny idea more than you would have without this meeting and without that talk. Good. Why we are talking about IP? Did you ever wonder why you should IP? What is intellectual property? What is that? Why it's important? Can you guess? So if you do a company valuation, and for Benedict, this is very important for you, because I don't know if you want to be in that company for forever, or do you want to sell it, but usually they need a kind of valuation because with that they get the money, or later on they can get loans for it. And valuation of companies is always the sum of the material assets and the immaterial, intangible assets of a company that depicts the value. And there's a study which reviewed the S&P 500 index. It's a stock market index. The companies there, what is their value driver? And it's 90% intangible assets. So have that in mind, that your businesses are not valuated for the PCs or so. They are valuated for the intangible assets, which means that's your core value. And if you want to change something and you want to build up value, you have to manage that. And there's another sweet part, because one thing is like, okay, makes my value. I get it, Ricardo. Thank you. But also there's studies for it. This is not Ricardo saying, hey, I'm an IP guy and I love IP. This is really a study, scientific research, which shows that companies that have intellectual property rights in any regards outperform their peers. It's not about that Samsung is valuable. No, compared to other things, is real like one company comparable to another company. And therefore, you make 1/5 more money if you understand how to wield IP. It doesn't mean that you have to get a patent. That's a different story. But to have that knowledge and how to apply it is a kind of professionalism. And if your professionalism in there, which one side is having IP rights, because it's not easy, it's effort, it costs money, you're professional in everything you do. And that leads to success. So now, what means this for you as an entrepreneur, a business person, an interested person, or even a knowledge worker of a university? It's very important. It's really good that today you're here. So I will tell you some stuff, you will love it, and perhaps you get one or two ideas you can use. Anna, is it okay to send the slides afterwards? Can we do that?
Absolutely, Ricardo. I think
because especially for you, Benedict, at the end, there are some contacts and ideas which helps you in particular. Okay? So therefore, now let's start with the basics. What do we mean with know-how? What do we mean? And if you look up the Duden, which for Germans is like, hey, if you want to define a word, you have to go to the Duden, which is like our Brockhaus. And there's the meaning of it. And it says like, hey, that knowledge, how you make something real. Basically, it says like that. That's know-how. And now the next question is, what is business know-how? And here I came up with my kind of own definition. Maybe there's another one who said something similar. I don't know. But this is what I made up from it. That's the knowledge and the skills to make a business, an endeavor successfully, and real. I believe all of you guys, especially I think Benedict, if they're, sorry, Benedict, I go there because of startups. You listen to a lot of people, they come up with great ideas, but they do nothing. They have the next big idea and it will be so good, but there's nothing. They didn't found, they didn't do. Therefore, they have great aspirations, but very few know how. And therefore startup following the founders at UniBW, therefore is so valuable because you actually get that know-how to make things real. And that's the thing. Why it is also important to listen, even if you're not want to become a founder. So what is my plan for today? I have a military guy. I like phases. So we start with phase 1, which is we need to talk about setting fundamentals, what it means to be a business person, what it means to be an entrepreneur. And in the second phase, the foundations for IP and IP rights. And then we can start to apply. And there comes the business lessons. How we wield intellectual property to receive more and more returns than without. And I made 3 examples from tiny business to larger ones. So you can get from all some insights, okay? Because the IP strategy of Apple doesn't work perhaps for you. But if you want to become Apple, so please allow me then to say in 10 years or 15 years, I know that person. So roughly we need 45 minutes. Oh, perhaps I have to be a bit more faster. But anyways, what it means to be an entrepreneur. That's a good question, or a lot of people are entrepreneurs, but what does the mean? And therefore, for me, is one very important thing that you have to understand. What is the main purpose of any organization? The thing is, like, there's an author, it's called Stefan Mehrath. And also for the startup guys, I can really recommend you that book from that person and follow his content. Is an old guy, but has very good thoughts about real entrepreneurship. Not this, I sell you to be an entrepreneur stuff thing business. Real, like, entrepreneur shows how it's done on an actual actionable level, and not this meta thing like build a business, make money. Thank you. How? Know-how is missing. And that guy sells know-how as well. So what is the primary mission or the primary purpose? Now, and there come people, they come like, yeah, money, getting fulfilled, delighting customers. This is okay. This is okay. The third one is okay, but it's not about you. It's not about making money. And it's also not about the employees. It's about the main purpose for any business is produce something of value and meet the demands and expectations of the clients. It is a general one. If you think one, it's a general one. It suits for Apple, and it also suits for the Curry's sausage shop outside or so. They're also providing something of value, meeting the demands. Therefore, a general one. And it's so interesting if you speak with people. It's a great team exercise. I really bullied my team with such things. Like, it says like, hey, what is the main purpose of Evo IP back then? And I was like, providing value to my customer. I don't care if it's done according to what we have agreed. I'm caring, is that solving our customer's problem? And if not, we have to rethink how we do things. I don't want that. And with that, I gain trust. People still miss my company. They still miss it. And they're like, hey, you did really excellent. So why you go? I was like, hey, guys, you were freezing up funds, and I didn't receive my invoices in the last 6 months. Sorry for that. But that's the point, and that's how you delight customers. Now, speaking about the role of entrepreneurs, they have different roles to fulfill. And one role is to be the system designer. Now you build a system to make money, a money printing machine. The next one is like you are the creator. No, therefore this goes in the thing like how do you perhaps create something new which is not there, or improve something, or just make another thing meeting a demand, unsolved demand on the market. And the next one is, and this is very important, you have to be what we call in German an ordentliche Geschäftsperson. In the law says Geschäftsmann, but I was a bit more inclusive. I like to be more inclusive. Is a Geschäftsperson, okay? No matter what you call yourself. And therefore you have, there's especially if you have a capital limited business, a limited thing like that, according to German law, you have to be diligent. It's a must. It's not I maybe, no, it's a must. And please, off the thinker. If you think and clever, it saves you a lot of worries. No? And therefore, entrepreneurs, they recognize problems before they turn into crisis. That's basically the roles we have to do in general. Now let's speak about the types of task, Tätigkeiten. Therefore, and you always have like 3 types. The first one is the Fachkraft, the professional, which does the value creation. The next one is a manager, which organizes everything around on the value creation, getting resources, the time, when it's done, invoicing, motivating people, that's managing. And the third one is being an entrepreneur, in which what is defined as value that we want to offer, and in which direction of the value creation we want to go, which are the markets we want to go. And now listen to me. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to think about what is your workday looking like. Because if you're, and this happens especially for startups, in the beginning, you're always the professional and the manager. And later on, and doing the entrepreneurial stuff as well. The problem is, if you're working as a professional and as manager, you're seeking stability because you want to get performance. As an entrepreneur, you want to create impact, which destroys stability from time to time. And then you have that internal conflict. So why I'm telling you this? It is very important that you understand, as an entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to think about intellectual property. And you have to make it. You have to do it. But it's not your job on the long run. Okay, you can do it in the beginning, but in the long run, it is not your job. You shouldn't become a patent attorney. It's not your thing. It's not, if you're founding a law firm, patent law firm, perhaps, but for everyone else, it's not a thing. And especially in startups, it's often like this. We do everything a bit chief cleaning lady as well, because we're tight on budget. So who are the 5 people that you need as an entrepreneur? Now, before it was 4, now I took the liberty to add 1 person more. So you need a banker, you need the tax consultant, you need a mentor, and hopefully you have one, and you need a lawyer. That's the people of the external network that you need should be at hand. It doesn't have to work all the time, but getting those, you have a high probability to succeed with your entrepreneurial journey. And the next person I like to introduce for you is the IP expert. It doesn't have to be a patent attorney. It can be one, but it doesn't have to be, but a person which is savvy in that regard. And there are more in that market outside as we believe. The thing is just like, if I have to go for a patent, I go to a patent attorney. That's the usual route that most people have in mind. But there are a lot of mentors in this IP thing there which are helping you. Therefore, the question is, who do you need? Okay, and we will answer that question later on. That's why I said, Benedict, hey, we send you the slides. What is one thing that is also very important as entrepreneurs? This one, I see it so often, the business model canvas, I see it so often all over around. But do people actually work with that, understanding it, applying it? And this is just one example. Most important is you have to understand your business model. How does your money printing machine work? How shall I give you advice for your money printing machine if you don't know it yourself? And if you can't communicate it, I can't help you. You don't have to do business model canvas. It's just a nice thing. Let's do a small what's the name? Excursus. The thing is like that. There are different ways to start. For me, what I like to start is thinking of who are your customers, then what you offer them in terms of value. When you have the value thing, you ask yourself how you provide that, what you need to do to get the value. And then you feel this. And if you are ready with that, you ask, how do you ship it back? And what type of relationship you like to have? And then you're thinking of how you make money, the revenue streams, how you earn it, make you think of that, and what costs you money. Is it per item? Is it, if you have like a software thing or so, you have perhaps servers, so I don't know. But this is a way to structure that business model and to talk with a person about that. I can strongly recommend, if you need any advice from a person or so which is not used to what you are doing, you don't have to use the business model canvas, but something similar like this, that you can sketch and explain what you're doing. And it's a good exercise. Also, sorry, Benedict, I tell you again. I don't know, Stefania, do you also have a business?
Yes, I do. I'm an employee in a multinational company.
You want to found a company?
Not now. No, I'm
but
busy.
you have it in mind to do it.
Yes, I know very well the model canvas to define business, customers' needs, and
Yeah,
value.
this is not about knowing, it's more about what you would like to do. Therefore, I don't want to put everything on Benedict's shoulders because otherwise people think like, hey, he speaks only to Benedict. No, that's not the point. It's very, very good to know that you can do that. And if you have the aspiration, and also for employees, you can do that on a department level. What is the value creation, the internal customers and the business model of the department? And this is what I meant now. If you have a startup, it makes so sense that founders, they go in different rooms, do that for themselves, and then come together. And then you will be surprised that everyone has a bit slightly different understanding. And it's not clear. It's never clear. When people come like, hey, it's clear what we do. It's never clear. So congratulations. First part is solved. Now we continue with foundations of intellectual property and intellectual property rights. But we have to make first some distinctions. It is very important to understand that there are different concepts around. First of all, we have the public area, and in the public area, you have something which is called public domain and free prior art. And that are things that you can use freely to make money. For example, I know there's a web page which offers high definition prints of classical pieces of art. Or if you, for example, make a book with Goethe, with the works of Goethe or any author for 100 years ago, you can do that. You can offer that directly on Amazon or so. You can print it free to use. And also in the publicity, there are available the IP rights of others. They belong as a kind of what we call a Stand der Technik, prior art, and you can use to some degree the information there to create something new. You just have to think about and to be careful. But everything which belongs to public domain can be used. And now, very important, we come now to our company. And I told you 90% of the value is usually intangible assets, which means your know-how, how you do things. I was on a marketing conference on a weekend, and everyone like, yeah, okay, patent guy. I was like, okay, let me tell you why intellectual property is the most important thing of your life. And they were like, okay. So it's like, hey, why I should take you to make me an ad in Facebook or in the meta world, the metaverse? Why should I do that? They come like, yeah, because I can do it better. And you see, the way that you can do it better, no, is your value proposition, and that's know-how. No, and it's not that obvious to do, because otherwise everyone will operate the same level like you can do, and that makes you competitive. And that know-how needs to be protected. That belongs to the intellectual property. No, they're kind of trade secrets, information, good practices, your customer data. No, that's all property, intellectual property, and is somehow protected in a way. And within that thing, there are the rights, the protective rights. And for some stuff, you don't have rights. For some stuff, you can obtain rights. And only you have to also, because there are like registered intellectual property rights and there are unregistered ones, for example, copyright. But you have to somehow prove that you had it in some point of time. And it is not the idea of your former employee afterwards. Good. And if the more IP rights you get also, and you have somehow managed, they are good for your company valuation, because you can prove that you have that knowledge, that you have that competitive edge. What is very important now, and this is now really nice, because you don't have to learn too much about IP rights, okay? You just have to think, you just have to follow that route. Everything starts with an idea. Everything you do starts with an idea. It's always like that. The question is now, what time, the dimensions of the idea. Does it have a referential value? For example, a trademark like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, if I attach Coca-Cola, Mercedes, Brabus to a glass for drinking water, the glass itself becomes more valuable because it has now a brand, and we believe it's more thing. That's a referential value. It gives something to other thing in combination. And the per se value means like it has a value by its own. The next dimension is it either expressive or more functional? And then when we start our idea, and it is, for example, referential, and it gives something to it, therefore it is a trademark. It gives, well, I attach, for example, Nike on a fabric, and most people think that, oh, it's a Nike one, it must be good, and I will buy it for a higher price than the fabric I would be having self. If it's expressive and has some value, it can be like a poem, a software program or so, or you draw something. It is a copyright, for example. If it's more technical, first of all, it starts functional, like a business method, or even with a physical thing, technical thing. It can be first a trade secret, and from the trade secret, it develops to a patent or a utility model, what you can use. That are the type of IP rights you can use to protect an idea in the certain dimensions. And in between, there's one missing. That's the design. Thank you. Very important. The IP rights mostly are, they are not allowing rights. They are so-called Verbietungsrechte, which means like stop, you can't use it. They don't allow you to use it. Depending on the type, they are sometimes only for one country or multiple countries. It depends on the type. You have to register, or at least you have to prove that you have them. And most of them, they are, in terms of the time, limited. The exception is for the trademark. A trademark you can go on forever, and renew it all the time. But the patent, for example, can be at max protecting 20 years. And now coming back to my dear marketing agency friend, most of the IP that you have is really the foundation for contracts. For example, you have that know-how how to make ads. To make a contract up front, telling that's a trade secret, and you have a kind of a trade secret protection, you make a contract, allows you that the contract even has power, or that when a person steals from your trade secrets, if it's not, if you don't have any legal protection, your contracts are basically worthless. If the person goes to a state where the law is very hard to enforce, it's over. There was a long time the case for China, really a long time the case for China. It was hard for foreigners in China to enforce their rights, especially IP rights. But now that they got much more mature, so even a foreigner can now enforce their IP rights in China. Now a brief excursion. Is it excursion? I don't know. How to protect software very briefly. And you have to understand all software is protected by copyright by default. So sorry, that's the reason why there's no chance for patentability for patents. Was the early mistake. It is possible to have that. I will explain it now. Software, how would protect it? First is you have this copyright. The next thing is you use trade secrets. You don't show your source code if you want to use it exclusively just for you. And you can have a patent on software, but only if it can cause somehow a technical effect. If you have that, it's possible to protect. But a software, just because it looks nice or do something what it should do, is not enough. But always, if you have the feeling like, oh, it could be, please talk to your IP experts. And it's possible if you have like a special interface that could be somehow related in design and icons. If you use icons or so, they can also have a certain degree on copyright. But this is the way how you protect software. Always with software, makes sense to talk to an IP expert and look what you have there, especially if you have somehow a technical thing. Now let's talk about the three maturity levels of companies. The first level is that you and this is what everyone shall do, this foundation, and without, please don't do it. Ensure that you're allowed to do what you do, and that you maintain your trade secrets. Because you don't know if you want to later go on for somehow a right. But if it's like public on your Instagram page, sorry, maybe there is no chance anymore to get a patent because it has to be novel and unknown to the world. And therefore, the key actions is here. You have to be aware, and you should somehow get an IP expert. The next step, and this is now where it starts making fun and getting more money, is you try to get an exclusivity, and that you leverage IP, for example, for licensing thing. It's not only about patents, it can be also your copyright, your software, business models, franchise systems, or so. That's a way. But what you need for that is always that there's one person who's is not only aware, but they have the responsibility to do that, and is actively generating IP rights and assets with it. Now, if you want to make, for example, if you want to sell how to make good Facebook ads or so, it's an intangible asset. It's an intellectual property. You do then a kind of guideline, booklet, and then you sell the book. And how to exploit it for money. Now, when you really want to rely solely on your IP to make money, therefore like licensing IP rights, and then you really have to work with a systematic generation of assets. You have to have your own experts, and you need to have a high degree to enforce an IP strategy. Nokia, Qualcomm, they are all companies which have such kind of a business model. They don't produce any Nokia. I don't know if Nokia does phones anymore, but I think the Nokia is just a brand now which is selling a phone, but they do so much in research and they earn by licenses. Same goes with Qualcomm. Qualcomm themselves, they don't produce even chips. That does Samsung for them. And TSMC, they don't produce chips. They do the research and the layouts. Now, this is a must, where it says, hey, if you want to play with the first thing, there's a lot of different tasks of IP management in a company, particular for you as founder and clever businessman. The IP risk management is the one that you need to do minimum. And what you have to do there, what you have to look for. Do you have in your business model somehow too few IP rights to make it, to have a good bargain also to competitors? Now, if your competitors have like 100 patents in that field and you have none, can be problematic if you have somehow a fight and you can't cross-license or so. Therefore, it's too few to do it. Do you ensure that you don't infringe anyone's patent rights or so? Are you monitoring? Have you checked if the name is free? Have you checked if there's a trademark? It's most expensive if you do a branding with a name and then you figure out after you spend like 50,000 euros for your branding that you're not allowed to use it. Therefore, do that stuff first. And also in terms of my contracts that you have with your employees, with partners, with friends that you help you, never let anyone just help you without somehow a regulation on IP. It's okay to get the basic thing, but if it's like, for example, that an agency does you a nice web page, but you're not allowed to take the IP of that, which means like the design or so, there's a clear statement. Go the F away and find another agency which gives you the IP rights. It's your IP rights. It's your brand, and you want to have the full control of it, not someone else. This is what you have to check in thing. And also the loss of IP and know-how. Therefore, how do you ensure that trade secrets are not leaving the company? Because they're tied to person usually. They know how to do it, and when they leave, no one knows how to do it. Notate it. Do they everything which shall be a secret needs to be taking effort to do it. So with respect for the time, I will need to rush a bit. Sorry for that. Yeah, the IP risk management is not everything, but it's the start. Now, where to find your intellectual property? Do you have intellectual property? It's always a good question. Ricardo, I don't have intellectual property. I think like, well, let me guess others. So one thing that you have is like, where's your potential to create something? No? Then you have to analyze the business model. And then you have to analyze where's your business setting in which country, which brand, what you do, what are people, how it works. And then you can come up with a plan to strategically generate IP rights and manage the IP and the intellectual property. And then you can talk with IP experts to get the rights. And we do some examples. How does a plan look like? Is a so-called IP roadmap. This is now a real-life example where I did together with a patent attorney a workshop for a startup, and it's always like that. You have the first phases, surprise, like you saw with the maturity models. You have the avoid and claim. Then you have like the scale up after 3 to 5 years. It says, okay, in the first 2 months, you just want to prevail and don't infringe anyone. With expand and protect, you really want to start to set up the foundation to exploit it strategically without infringing anyone. And in the third level, you really want to make money with it. and therefore they're different fields, and you see what is there to do. You will have it later in the slides. Now, important question is, who shall be my IP expert? I talk now about IP experts, but this is so fuzzy term. Can be everyone, someone who does know something about IP, someone who has worked with IP, and therefore think again of the 3 types of thing, and depending on which level is your need, you have to decide who can it be. If it's more on a technical perspective, professional one, therefore patent attorneys are fine, lawyers, lawyers can do trademarks, for example, or just a free patent engineer that you can get an hourly rate, and he drafts you something or do something. Now you can ask an IP service provider. For example, my company is the largest IP service provider. We have a lot of startups who pay their annuity fees for their IP rights with us because it costs a fraction of that what the attorney costs. And funny thing, most of the attorneys work with my software, so it's not that there's even a difference in quality. It's just the access. The next thing is like management. And therefore, you can also like IP managers, which are people from the industry which work with assets. Therefore, there's the different roles name. And on the business side or so, you should really think about to get higher. Just because a patent attorney has ever advised some startups, they don't know so much about industry and business at all. They come from law firms. They were perhaps studying. Some of them had worked, but most of them were studying. Then they were in a law firm, and they were only doing law firm thing, but they don't know so much about business. And don't let anyone interfere you, advise you with business, about business, who doesn't have a clue. Be aware, some patent attorneys, they're excellent entrepreneurs. That's not the point, not for all, but just you have to be ensuring that it's there. Therefore, always ask yourself, is the person suitable? Has he relevant experience? And do you have the feeling he's a good person? So 4 minutes. Now, very briefly, Anna, do we need to have a hard stop at 3?
No, I don't really think so. If it's I think it's okay if we extend 5-10 minutes, and I saw that we have already even some comments from Andre in the chat. So maybe we could have a short Q&A as well. So let's take like 15 to 20 more minutes.
I would propose the following. Everyone who has to drop off or so can drop off because there's the recording. There's the recording of it, and and who wants to stay, and also with the questions, because the people who are still interested, they can watch the recording. Thank you for the thing. I don't know, perhaps I'm so talkative today. Usually, funny side story, usually if you do something in German, it takes more time than in English because German has longer words. Okay. Now, coming back to the foundations, if you recall, I said, hey, business model canvas, that's the most important. It's not the business model canvas, but understanding your business model is the most important thing. Otherwise, I can't help you. And therefore, good IP rights always support the business model. And you have to update your business, IP rights according to the business model. And therefore, good intellectual property in general follows and is generated from the business model. It's like a synergy, and that's the task of IP management to work there and to ensure that. And also, risk can be observed from the business model. If you understand that you have a supplier who needs to deliver things, or your software is set up on part of open source, part of third-party software that you license in. That's a risk you have to manage. You have to ensure that open source is not infecting your revenue streams, because if it says it needs to be free, or that the licensing, if the licensing goes up and is not predictable, and there's like these things in the contracts that they can raise it anytime they want, you need to manage that. Therefore, just make a good margin in the beginning. Don't start with too few. And congratulations. Now we come to the third part where we finally talk about some examples. And thank you for bearing with me until then. This is very good that you're still here. So let's talk about an example. This is all real life example, no bullshit people that I made, that I've met. This was a pharma startup. What they want to do, and I didn't got it correctly how it technically works, but it should be a treatment against cancer. And the guy was like 10 years researching it and want now to do like a spin-up. They have like a startup and so on. And they're also like, okay, they had this thing like, oh, they can't go for a patent. I was like, come on, guys, are you sure you can't go for a patent? Let's have a talk. And then they booked a workshop, which cost like 2,000 euros. And after that workshop, they learned their whole business model is only about intellectual property. It's a different thing, and they understood how important it is. But it was also like they want to provide the value to have that, to offer that medicament or so. Therefore, it's even the formula to the farmer things, and how to build the relationship. What you can see here, the pharma concepts. Then I started with what they're offering and what were the key activities there right now there. Making the research, building relationships, and at the moment they are using as key resources the lab. This is the reason why this lab thing that I was earlier told by Anna, you have access to labs. It's even a huge deal. Do you know that if the university is not aware of it, they can lose. I don't know if they depend on funding. If they're depending on public funding, they're even maybe not allowed to do it even. Therefore, because it's a commercial, goes in this realm of, in German we say unlauterer Wettbewerb, which means unfair competition, because the companies outside, they can't use a lab for free. Therefore, you see, it's such a good, brilliant offer. Do it. Their own employees and their attorneys. And the idea is later they will generate money from either from the licenses they get and from governmental subsidiaries. That's how the system work until they reach agreements with the farmer thing, because they have like studies to provide, because it's a medicament or so it needs to be insured and proved. And they have like key partners there, an incubator and university. That's the way how their business model is working. So for them, the most important IP topics are trade secrets. If the formula is ever to get known, there's no point of any industry to pay you for what. If it's public, it's public. Why should pay you for that, for good measures? No, there's nothing in this world like free lunch. So they need to do patenting at some point to exploit that formula, and they used to ensure to have the IP in contracts. And also one part which starts now, can also be later done, is very important, are the brand building. Why is the brand building so important? Does any one of you have a clue when the patent of aspirin was lapsing? It is, I can't see the chat, by the way. So it is 1910, was around the beginning of the 20th century, but still we have aspirin. because that's a brand name, is acetylsäure or acetyl acid in English. I don't know. That's the formula, the compound. But aspirin is the trademark, and I guarantee you, in Germany, people even says, "I want to have aspirin against my headache." They use it somehow interchange. They really have issues to prevent that the trademark is still valuable because people use it so likely and so often. It's super powerful. With that, they make the money in the future when the patent protection has lapsed. If you have the trademark. Now, next one. This was a Russian guy I got to know over Instagram, 2017. But that guy, I say, hey, respect. He was coming up sourcing tea bottles from China, making the package design, everything, offering on Amazon, and made money. He had customers, end consumers between 2040 in Germany, and therefore, and his main channels for distributing was Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, the thing. He builds a relationship with social media ads, and this tea bottles he got, as I already told, he got them from China. He was using Amazon to get it sent, and had friends who was like making him the advertising and stuff like that. And his key activities was all around providing that stuff, packaging, sending to clients, making advertising. And also from the cost structure, you see a typical cost structure. And he made his main revenue through the sales. This is nothing fancy or super complicated, but he made it. Congratulations. Until, and I was writing him like, hey, congratulations, I saw you also sell your stuff on eBay. And he was like, I do what? No joke, they copied one-to-one the product, the pictures, the trademark, everything, and offering it. The price was like 30 euros for a bottle, and on eBay was 40 euros, with the same logo and thing. A small, tiny seller on Amazon. Even those, and this is the reason for him, most important, he doesn't have a patent on the tea bottle. It's known as a product off the shelf you can buy, but build his trademarks to ensure that he can that he has the copyright and the software, that he has the contracts to use the stuff which is generated by his friends, and that he protects the data of the clients. That is the main field. Now, the next example is a small company I worked with. They had this what's the name? Ceilings? No, seal. It's a seal. It's a seal. Is a made of rubber or plastic, and for them, they're doing this since decades. There's no real patent for it, and they produce it. They deliver it to their very good ties to the industry, because they are making high quality products for good price, and therefore for ages there, they know it's good, and they do everything. Therefore the seals itself, they don't have none somehow inventive thing or process secrets that makes it so special. That's not the point. It's just plain, clear, professional execution, nicely done by the books. Really good. Really like with care. And their fields, because they're like, hey, Ricardo, we have something which is already known to everyone. And I was like, guys, from IP, the most important things like manage your reputation. You have to ensure your brand that this is thing, because your reputation is what makes you the money. The customers that you have for ages, the data, the access to them, the names, that's very important to keep as a trade secret, and to ensure through the IP protection in contracts. Then are the 3 examples. Now, this is, you can see how I did it from business models, how to derive the risk, and the areas for where I can use the IP, what type of IP I use. And now we're talking very briefly about support. So what I already mentioned was, if you recall that thing, who shall be your IP expert, there are also like official support you can use. And therefore, it makes sense, especially for you in the beginning, to start on that area. And one partner for Bavaria, which is quite good, except for for the founders at UniBW, for sure, is Bayern Innovativ. They have a kind of a patent center, and also they start from the idea checking to commercialization for monitoring and so on, and also the technical standards you have to somehow think. This is also a thing for themselves, how to make it. This is all their one service provider, which I can recommend. They're quite affordable. Also, they help you. Another aspect is to help you to exploit. And there's the company called VacuTech, which is a spin-off of the TU. They produced this is insulation for buildings, but they got known for vaccinating all the world, because the COVID vaccines, they had to be transported thermally stable, and this was done with the containers. Therefore, they provide the knowledge of the building, because they work with a vacuum, which is the best insulation, and provide it in shipping containers. They make more money with shipping containers than with the insulation now. And they were also a spin-off and become a mature company. And they were all across the different stages in the thing, be supported by them. So if you're in Bavaria, if you need support, money, or want to exchange with something hardware stuff, speak with Bayern Innovativ. It's a good cluster network. Now, what I'd like you to do, first, I'm already a bit of time, but we have a couple of minutes, no worries. Brief, take a breath, think. Then for yourself, you need one responsible. If you're one person, it's you. Then your business model, you have to understand it. You have to notate it. You have to get a full grasp on it. And then you can ask yourself, okay, what do you do? If there are some risks, like, for example, you're exposing something on a web page, take the web page down. Perhaps no one has seen it. No one can prove it. And the rest, put it on a action plan. And then continue with the business model. Check what are the risks. Check where you have potentials. And then find someone to talk about it. An IP expert can be that thing, can be a patent attorney, can be a good friend. More important is that the person has some sound understanding of business and your IP. And now the most important thing, that for the people who were not there in the beginning, like, IP is the sole responsibility of the entrepreneur and the boss, the CEO. You have to make it. It's not that you in order to make it with IP and so on, generate it. It's not the task of the entrepreneur. It's the task of the experts or the IP experts. Now, everyone has a touch point with IP rights, or has to some degree intellectual property. They have to you have to avoid at all costs to infringe third-party rights, otherwise your business model is dead. And if you manage IP properly, it brings you money, more than you can have without. And the starting point is always your business model, to check what you need, and then to use cleverly programs and this. Now, I know that all of you that you have